Hi everyone, it's Alice and welcome to this reading vlog. It has been ages since I made one of these, but I wanted to make one now because I'm gonna be reading Katabasis or Katabasis by R.F. Kuang, and this is just a book that I'm very excited about, and it's like a big release this year, so I thought it could be cool to take you along with me. This came out about a month ago now, and I want to dive into it because I think if I don't do it now, I'm gonna put it off for years. And I just want to do it. And I haven't, I've been pretty good at avoiding spoilers. I haven't seen a lot of people's opinions on this, but I do want to see what other people are saying as well, but I want to read it first, so I'm gonna do that. And I've seen some discourse around this, but not a lot. I've seen some discussions around certain parts of it, but for the most part, I don't really know what other people think. It wouldn't really matter anyway, but sometimes it's just nice to go into these kinds of books with very few, preconceptions or expectations. Now, I do have some expectations about this book. I actually feel like this is going to be the perfect read for me, and I'm trying not to get, my hopes up too much, but the story just sounds perfect for me. The story is about two PhD students who are studying magic at Cambridge, and their professor dies, and he ends up in hell, and they decide that their degrees are too difficult to finish without him. Like, it's very inconvenient that he's died. So they decide to go to hell to get him back. I'm not entirely sure if it's to get him back or if it's to get a recommendation letter or something like that, but they need him, and so they decide to go to hell to find him. I also know that one of the main characters' names is Alice because it says so on the back here. And I think she's the main character and the one that we're seeing the perspective from. And I'm not sure how this rival ends up joining her to hell, if that's by choice or I don't know how that happens. But it'll be interesting to see. Now, I've read two other books from this author. I've read Yellowface and Babel, and I think Babel is the one that I liked the most. I actually kind of want to reread that book because I think I would like it even more on a reread. And I like a lot of her fantasy stuff. I think that's really cool, and I like a lot of the themes that she explores. Sometimes when I've read her books, I feel like they're a little bit heavy-handed, and by that I mean they're a little too obvious with what they're trying to tell the reader, and I think I just like it a little bit more when the author trusts the reader a little bit more. So I am curious as to how that's going to be in here, whether it will be heavy-handed to me or not. But yeah, I am excited. I am curious about the writing in this though, because from some of the stuff that I've sort of gathered about this book is that some people feel like it's very academic, and I'm curious about how that's gonna be. And I have actually seen some videos and stuff where people have discussed books that you should read before you read this book so that you sort of understand it more. And I'm wondering if that's actually necessary. Probably not, I feel. The only classical text that I've read about hell is actually Dante's Inferno, and when I say read, I mean I clawed my way through that book. To be honest, I don't really remember why I decided to read it, but I think it was just because it's one of those things where I just wanted to read it to have read it, and I almost feel like I didn't read it. I clawed my way through that book because it was very difficult to read for me. But I have read it, and so that's the only text that I can think of that might come up in this. It would actually be a little bit strange if it didn't come up in it, but other than that, I don't really know. I haven't prepared for this, and I kind of feel like I probably don't need to. I do think it would be cool to do a little bit of studying before reading this, but I don't want to, so I'm not gonna do it. But some of the videos that I've seen talking about books that you should read before or in addition to this, it's a really cool idea actually, but yeah, I'm just gonna dive into this because I don't want to wait anymore. And I don't know, I just feel like the premise of this just sounds perfect for me. It has a lot of elements to it that I just think I'm really gonna like, and I do like the idea that this is kind of like a journey or an adventure in a way. It sounds weird to call it an adventure when you're adventuring through hell, but an adventure is an adventure, and I usually really like books with these kinds of like quests or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I just think this is gonna be great. I'm trying not to get my hopes up, but yeah, I should probably just start reading this and stop rambling. I do really like the edition that I have. It has like sprayed edges, and it has end papers. I don't really know what this is. It says it's chalk for making magic, so I'm assuming they use chalk in some sort of way. But yeah, I'm gonna get started on this, and I will talk to you when I have read a little bit, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. I didn't actually notice that there is a cat on the cover here until now, which makes me think maybe there is a cat in the book, which makes it even better. Is it like a hell cat? Maybe? I guess we'll see. I'm gonna go read now. So I've now read about 80 pages, this much, not a lot, but a little bit, and we're getting into the story. Like, the book starts right off with the main character going to hell, and it starts off by saying, like, we're in Cambridge, it's October, and instead of lecturing undergraduate students, our main character, it says, like, Alice Lost set out to rescue her advisor's soul from the 8 courts of hell. So the book starts with her doing this ritual. So we just jump straight in. I think I mentioned this, but our main character wants to go to hell because she feels like her career depends on it. Like, she needs the advisor for her career's sake, and this professor is, like, famous, and studying under him opens all of these doors, and she just feels like she needs him. And this guy, her academic rival, Peter, also studies under the same professor, and he kind of randomly joins her in the beginning of the book and insists on going on this journey with her while she's doing this ritual, and he's sort of thought about the same thing. So the idea is kind of two minds are better than one, so they end up going together, and they get to hell, which is an interesting setting. And it's just, like, I'm already, like, very curious about several different things. Like, I don't fully understand why it's so important for them to get this professor, in part because the price of going to hell is very steep. Like, the price is half of your remaining years, so you're giving up half of the rest of your lifetime to go to hell. And I'm just thinking, like, there's gotta be more to this than just wanting to get their professor back. Like, that seems pretty insane, but maybe that's the point. Both of these characters are quite interesting, though. Our main character, Alice, who we're seeing the perspective of, she's very competitive, and she's, like, deep into this academia world, and it's kind of like everything to her, which I think is interesting, and she's just an interesting person. She's very driven, but she's also really exhausted, which kind of makes sense, but she's very passionate about, like, magic, and it's clear that her and Peter have some sort of past together, which is sort of hinted at, and I'm guessing we'll learn more about that. I hope so, because there's some tension. I am also curious about this professor and how much we get to learn about him. And I am very curious whether or not they're going to find him in here, because it kind of seems like an impossible task. There are a lot of souls, or shades as they're referred to in here, and there's hell is huge, and there are, as I think I mentioned, 8 courts, so there are 8 parts of it. And they've already met some souls that make me think that this professor was maybe not a great person, or is a great person. He's just a soul now, I guess. But yeah, I'm curious as to where he is in hell and if they're gonna find him. It kind of seems like an impossible task. I do think hell so far is a really cool setting though. Like it's kind of creepy but also a little bit absurd, and like the part where they're in now kind of looks a little bit like Cambridge, and it's kind of like a campus, but I don't know if that's all of hell or just this part. And I'm wondering how the rest of hell is going to be as they progress through it. But I really like it. It's kind of absurd, and I feel like that makes perfect sense with how it should be. Speaking of hell, there are actually, like, the characters have drawn some maps because they're discussing how they think hell is structured because they have to make their way through it. So we have, like, I think this is Alice's map and this is Peter's map. I don't remember. I think so. Didn't we draw something else? Oh, there's a drawing in here as well. I don't know how interesting this is to look at. But they're talking about how they think hell is structured. There's also a river in hell, which is quite interesting. And I did peek in the back, and there are more, like, detailed maps back here. I don't know which one is more correct, but I did see that there is another map in here of a character that we have not met. So I don't know who this is, but I think I like this map the best. But I think it's interesting that they're talking about, like, how hell is, and I do see some sort of similarities in parts to Dante's Inferno, and there are references to other, like, versions of hell and stuff, and yeah, I really like it as a setting. It's very interesting, and I like having the characters be these academic people who have researched this place before they got there, and they're trying to figure out, like, what's correct and what isn't, and try to make sense of it. But it's a very weird place, so I don't know if it's really possible to make sense of it. Oh, also I wanted to mention that obviously this world and the magic and everything, there's a lot to it, and we've had a couple of chapters now on, like, different kinds of things, and they are written sort of like an academic text. So this is on reincarnation, and the other thing, we got, like, a chapter about magic and how that works, and I quite liked that, actually, getting a little bit more sort of background into how the world in this book works, and I do think that the magic is really interesting, and it's an interesting system. I don't fully understand it, but it is pretty cool. And the chalk, which I think I mentioned in here, this is what they do to draw, like, what they use to draw, like, pentagrams on the ground, and that's how they do magic. And yeah, I do like the magic system. And yeah, honestly, so far I really like it. I'm just very curious as to where it's gonna go, and, like, how different parts of hell are going to be, and where this freaking guy is, and if they're gonna be able to get him or not. I don't understand how they're supposed to get him back up to the world when he died the way he died. Anyways, I'm just very intrigued and interested, and I just want to keep going, and I feel like this book really hooked me from the very first page, so I just want to keep reading. So that's what I'm gonna do, and I will report back when I've read another good chunk, I think. I'm about halfway through the book now. I'm, like, this much through on, like, page 240 something, and we are really getting into the story now, and I gotta say, I'm really, really enjoying this book. We're venturing deeper and deeper into hell, and it's a very interesting place. We've met some interesting characters, we've met some terrifying things. Yeah, we've just gotten, like, deeper into it, and I'm really enjoying it. We're also diving deeper into the characters of both Alice and Peter, and we're getting to learn more about their relationship, which I'm really enjoying. So the book is sort of switching between them being in hell and then sort of flashbacks to the past of them studying. Mostly it's focusing on like Alice's perspective, but we're learning a lot about her experience of sort of academia and everything that she's been through with the professor, and it's very interesting sort of getting deeper under her skin. And I feel like the first part of the book was relatively like fast paced. We're going to hell and learning a little bit about that, and now we're sort of taking a step back and actually getting to know the characters, which I really like because I love reading about characters and I like when there's like some character driven stuff in books. So I'm really enjoying the flashbacks. Like, it's very interesting. We're also getting like a better understanding of Cambridge in here, I feel. And I feel like the world of Cambridge and the magic and all of that is like being fleshed out a little bit. I don't know if I mentioned this, but this is set in the 80s. And to be honest, I had to Google when it was set because I didn't really understand when it was set. I was like, is this contemporary? Because it doesn't feel fully contemporary. It's set in the 80s. There are some references that you can sort of piece together for it to make sense that it's set in the 80s, but I just didn't really understand it. I didn't catch it. But it's set in the 80s, and I think that's interesting because it's interesting seeing Alice in academia in this time and discussing some of the things that she's struggling with and her internal struggle, and also there's just a lot of discussions around that I think is really interesting. And I feel like in these flashbacks, the world of Cambridge and the magic and like the academia part of it is really falling into place and being like fleshed out, which I'm really enjoying. It does probably slow the book down a little bit, but I actually really like that. Again, I really like reading about characters and just seeing where these people come from, because going to hell is a very severe thing to do. So it's interesting to get to see how at least Alice came to that decision. It's very interesting. I'm also just enjoying learning more about the friendship and the relationship between Alice and Peter. There's a lot there, and more things are being revealed, and it's very interesting. Also, I'm really enjoying the writing, actually, and I'm enjoying Googling things along the way. There are references to things in here that I've never heard of. I don't know what it is. Some of it I understand, some of it I don't. And I just like Googling things to like learn more about it. Like there's mention of paradoxes and like mathematical concepts and things like that. I don't think you need to Google those things to understand this, though. It's just like, I think it's a fun thing to do. So even if you don't get all of it, like I don't get all of it, it feels fine to me. Just like we're learning more about Cambridge, we're also learning more about hell because we're venturing deeper and deeper into it, and it's very interesting. And I gotta say, the story has taken some twists and turns that I did not see coming. I don't really know where I expected this to go, but I'm really enjoying all of these like different turns that we're taking and different things that we're seeing, and it's weird. Like, hell is weird and it's creepy and scary, but I'm really enjoying it as a setting. And I like that we venture deeper into hell and we learn more about hell as we're also learning more about the characters and like getting to the bottom of why they're really there. I don't think we've gotten fully to the bottom of it yet, but I'm starting to piece some things together and it's starting to make a little bit more sense, and I'm getting a better grasp of all of these people. And honestly, none of these characters are perfect. They've got a lot of stuff going on. I think right now, I don't want to get ahead of myself and sort of make up my mind what I think about this book, but I'm just really enjoying it, and I'm having a good time, and I feel like I'm learning a lot, and I'm just very invested. I do think that the thing that I'm most invested in is sort of the main character and her relationship with Peter and that whole thing in the context of this academic world. I think that's the thing that I'm enjoying the most, which makes sense because I'm a reader who really likes characters and reading about characters, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying it, and I'm having a hard time putting this book down. Like, I kind of want to not do anything else and just read this book. But then I also want to take my time and sort of pace myself a little bit and take it like in bits. There are some parts that feel sort of denser than others, and we're getting into a lot of different like concepts and stuff, and it's nice to have it sort of simmer a little bit before I keep going, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm not gonna like say what I think I'm gonna rate this yet because I'm only halfway through, but so far I'm, so far so good, really. Okay, so I just wanted to do a quick check-in because I think the rest of this I am gonna have to read all in one go based on what just happened. I'm on page like 370 and some things have happened. I realize that's very cryptic, but I don't want to give anything away. But since I checked in with you last, we've spent some time in hell, obviously, and things have happened there, but we've also spent a pretty significant amount of time looking back at the past and exploring more about Alice and Peter and their relationship and everything that's happened. And I feel like we've gotten even deeper into what's actually going on. And I feel like it's been sort of character focused in the past little bit, and it's slowed the book down probably a significant amount, but I'm really enjoying it. I really like getting to know more about them, and like I feel like we're slowly peeling back the layers and I'm loving it. There's also been a fair amount of things that have really surprised me, and I've just really been enjoying it. Again, I really like reading about characters, so that kind of makes sense. And I sort of hope and I think that it's gonna pick up now towards sort of the ending, and like I'm guessing it's gonna get a little bit more exciting. They're gonna have to get out of this somehow, and I'm very curious as to how that's gonna go. And yeah, I really like it, and I just want to read the final bit all in one go because I think that's going to be a lot of fun and very interesting. I also just really like that I don't know how this is going to end. This whole journey so far hasn't really been what I expected, but in a good way. And so I feel like this had a lot of little surprises, and yeah, I really enjoy the sort of quest that we've gone on so far. And yeah, there are some scary things in hell, but there are also some sort of funny and absurd things, and yeah, I just gotta finish this and I'll give you my final thoughts. And yeah, I'm gonna go sit down and read now, and we'll see how it goes. So, I finally finished this book, and I'm gonna try to summarize all of my thoughts. I literally just finished it, so it hasn't totally like sunk in yet. And I feel like so far in this vlog, it's always difficult to discuss a book and not give everything away, and I try to like not do that, and so it's sort of hard to discuss except say like I'm liking it so far. But I'm gonna try to summarize everything that I've thought so far altogether. Although this is very clearly a book about these people going through a journey through hell, it's also a kind of character study, I would say. This book is more about the characters than I thought it was going to be, and I actually really like that because I love reading about characters. But I feel like the way that the book is structured is that through this journey through hell, we're going with them on this adventure, but we're also spending a lot of time sort of peeling back the layers of these characters and seeing more and more and more of their backstories, and it's sort of slowly revealed to us. And I think it's a very interesting way of structuring the book. It's kind of like when we meet Alice in the beginning of the book, when she's going to hell, she's so lost and she's so desperate. And then through the book, we sort of slowly learn how she got there and how she got so lost and how she got so desperate. And it doesn't totally make sense in the beginning of the book, but then slowly and surely it's sort of revealed to us. And I really like that structure. It's kind of like opening a book with a murder and then you go back and see how we actually get to that murder. And I think it's a very clever way of structuring a book, and I really like that structure. And I just really like reading about characters, and I thought that the characters in here were interesting, and there was a lot more to them and to their stories than I thought. I really like that the reason for all of this is not as simple as it seems like in the beginning, and I like that it almost seems like the characters don't really know that it's more complicated. They kind of know, but they haven't put it all together. And I really liked seeing more and more how complicated and complex the reasoning for this whole thing, like how much there was to it. And I like that it just sort of gets worse and worse, this whole situation throughout the book. And I feel like slowly but surely, it does kind of all make sense. I also just think it's an interesting exploration of academia, and we touch on a lot of different themes throughout this that I thought were really interesting. And I think in particular, the relationship and power dynamic between advisor and student is like a huge thing in this book, and it was interesting to explore. I think we all know how that power dynamic can be abused, but I thought it was interesting to explore it in here anyway, and the sort of subtleties of it. And I liked seeing the main character's perspective on this whole situation and how she feels like she's in control until she isn't, and then things just go completely off the rails. And her inner sort of struggle, I thought was really interesting. A lot of the themes that are explored in here are quite heavy, but I feel like it actually works really well, and I feel like it works that we have hell, which is obviously not a great place to be, but the way that it is in the book, I think works really well, because sometimes it's just, like, there is dark stuff in here, and some parts are terrifying, some parts are really gross and shocking, but sometimes things are just also very absurd. And I really like that. Things are a little bit silly sometimes even a little bit funny, and I think that there's a sort of insanity to it that I really liked and that I feel like fits this whole story. And I feel like although it's dark, it's not, like, it's dark, but it's also insane in sometimes a little bit of crazy way. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about what I said in the beginning about having seen a little bit of discourse around how academic this book is. To be totally honest with you, I don't really think I agree, and I don't fully understand that whole thing. Maybe it's just that I've misunderstood how people talk about it, but I actually don't think this is that difficult to read. And like I've mentioned, I've Googled things along the way, but I really don't think you need to. Yes, there are philosophical concepts in here and like mathematical concepts and things like that maybe you'll get a little bit more out of the book if you understand some of those things, but I didn't understand all of it, and I don't feel like I really necessarily needed to. I think having a certain level of understanding is obviously important, but it doesn't feel super academic to me, to be honest. It feels like a book, and obviously there are academic things in it, because academia is a big theme in this book, but I don't think anyone should be scared of it, really, if that makes sense. I don't feel like I fully understand that idea. I do think maybe some people just find it a little bit overwhelming because there is a lot of references to things, and maybe that's too much for some people, but I feel like it makes sense with who the characters are, that is a big part of the story. I also think, like I think I said that when I went into this book, I was a little bit worried that it was going to be heavy-handed, or like that's something that I've felt with her other books. I think that what this book says about life is relatively clear, but it doesn't feel quite the same in this one. I think it worked better for me in this one, the sort of message, and I think that there's more about the characters and things that happen. There's more of that that's left up for interpretation to the reader than I've felt in this author's previous books that I've read. And maybe it's just because this one hit me a little bit differently and I just liked the concept a little bit more, but yeah, I did really like the writing in this one, and it really worked for me. Although this is a book that I feel like maybe not everyone will like it's not for everyone, I don't think, it was kind of perfect for me. And it always takes me a few days to sort of decide what I'm gonna rate a book, but to be honest, I don't really have a lot of complaints about this. I really enjoyed it, and I liked it because it made me think and it challenged me on some things, and I feel like I learned a lot, but I also feel like I was really entertained and there was something really compulsive about it to me. And I wanted to know more about like hell and this quest, but I also wanted to know more about the characters, and I felt like I started to really care about them, and yeah, I got really invested in this, and I think I was right in that this was kind of like the perfect read for me, both with what it's about and the themes and the way that it's structured. Like, I don't really have any complaints. It is a little bit slow in parts, like I've said, but I think that slowness was sort of required, and I actually kind of liked that. I felt like it needed that to sort of take a step back and take a look at some other things, and I don't really have any complaints, to be honest. I really, really liked it. Maybe I even loved it a little bit. It is sort of like a very me book, though, for lack of a better phrase, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I am a little bit surprised by how much I love this, actually, because I've liked this author's other works, but I've never loved it as much as other people seem to have. So, yeah, I know this is my favorite that I've read by her, and I think it's just, I don't know, it really worked for me in here. And again, it is kind of an adventure that these people are going on, and I love an adventure, even when it's like this and we're in hell and it's dark and scary. It is an adventure, and it was a really good one, I think. Now, I haven't fully decided, but this is somewhere between like a 4 and 5 stars for me. I might end up giving it a 5 stars, actually. It is one of my favorite books that I've read this year, and I just thought it was, yeah, it was just perfect for me, and I really enjoyed it, and I kind of didn't want it to end. And I also did really like the ending. And also, by the way, I haven't really mentioned this, but I did see, I think on Goodreads, that it's marked as romance. And there is a little bit of it in here, but that's not like a huge part of the story. So if you're going into this book, I mean, love is a big part of this and friendship is a big part of it, but it's not a romance book, I would say. That might, like, if some people go into this thinking there's a lot of romance in it, I could see that they would be disappointed. But as we all know, I don't love romance, so the way that it was done in here for me was actually kind of perfect, and I was kind of into the little bit of it that we got. Because this is a book that, like I said, I don't think is for everyone, though, I kind of want to read some reviews on Goodreads to see what other people think. And I think I saw that it has like an average rating of like 3.8 or something like that, which usually means that some people really like it, some people don't. And I want to read a little bit about why people maybe don't like it and try to address what I think about it. I can imagine for some people, they're disappointed with like the level of romance. I can imagine there's too much like information in here for some people, and they don't like that. And I'm wondering if maybe it's a little bit slow for some people. Those are like my thoughts right now, but I could be wrong. Also, sometimes I'm the kind of reader where I don't necessarily notice plot holes that well. I'm kind of like blind to them when I'm in the vibes and I'm just like in it. I don't necessarily notice, so there might be some plot holes in here that I haven't seen, but yeah, I'm gonna read some reviews on Goodreads and let's see what other people think. I was wrong, by the way, about the rating. It has a 3.92 average rating. And by the way, when I marked this as currently reading on Goodreads, someone commented, like, this is my biggest disappointment of the year. I hated this book. So clearly, not everyone likes it, but I really did. And reading some of these reviews, it seems like some people feel like it's very info dumpy. And this is actually one of those things where maybe it is a little bit, but I actually kind of like that sometimes. I think that I'm just a reader who enjoys having a lot of background information, and it never feels. Well, I have read books where it does feel like an info dump, but it didn't feel like that to me in here. It just felt like getting more information. And that I'm seeing in some reviews that people feel like the author is trying too hard to show everyone that she's really smart. I didn't feel that. I think she probably, or my sort of view on it is that she probably is smart, and if she wants to show me, I'm okay with that because I like learning. And I mean, maybe there is some unnecessary information in here, but I don't know, I didn't really feel that way. I can also see that a lot of people really love her other books and didn't like this one, and so they're super disappointed, which I can understand because when an author that you love comes out with a new book, you usually have quite high expectations. So I think that that has affected some people's experience. And then a lot of, well, not a lot of people, but some people think that this book is really boring. And I think for some people, it probably is. And there's some like comments about it trying too hard and being a little bit pretentious. Maybe it is a little bit pretentious. To be honest, sometimes I really like pretentious books. You could say that The Secret History is also kind of pretentious, and I love that book. I don't necessarily feel like I didn't feel this while I was reading it, so I don't know. It's totally fair though that people don't like it. Like, that's fine. Maybe let's read some sort of middling reviews. One says, "These fools should have stayed in hell." That is a funny review. Kinda, yeah, they are a little bit stupid sometimes. But I also feel like that's almost kind of the point a little bit. I'm also seeing a review that says that this is a character-driven story, but it's worth mentioning that these aren't the kinds of people you'll want to root for. And I actually kind of agree with that. Like, the characters in here are kind of insufferable sometimes, and they're not all that likable, and sometimes you don't really always understand where they're coming from or why they're making the decisions that they are. I really like reading about those kinds of characters, though. I don't necessarily need to sort of root for them, and sometimes I do root for terrible characters too. So, yeah, I think that's interesting. I will say, I do think maybe that the professor, I really liked the way that we explored that character, and slowly but surely we learn more about him and who he actually is. I feel like the way that that ended, again, I don't want to give it away, maybe could have been done a little bit better now that I think of it. And his character could have been a little more complex, maybe. But then again, we're seeing the perspective not from his perspective. So maybe it makes sense that it's like that. This next one also says, "This book solidifies how boring and tedious philosophy is to me." That's totally fair. And I do think if you're not into reading about these kinds of concepts, there's probably like too much of it in here if you're not into it. I really like reading about those kinds of things, so it makes sense that I liked it. A lot of the complaints seem to be about that it's boring and they just didn't like it, which is totally fair. And I think I've said this before, but sometimes I really like slow and boring books. They just really work for me, and they work for me when it's like this, where it's like a character study. And I just thought that learning about the characters was really interesting. In particular, Alice and Peter. I just thought, yeah, I just really liked reading about them. Even though I don't necessarily like them, I liked reading about them. I think those are all my thoughts for now. I hope that this vlog ends up being somewhat coherent. It's been so long since I did a reading vlog that I kind of don't really know how to structure it anymore. But yeah, I hope you understood some of my thoughts about this. But I really liked it, and although I understand people's complaints, I don't think it's too academic for like regular people to read. I don't think you need to read anything else before reading this. I don't necessarily think me having read Dante's Inferno helped me that much while reading it. Yeah, I understand some of the references, but I don't think you really need to. And so I don't think you need to be scared of this book. Yes, it is slightly academic and there are a lot of concepts and academic stuff in it, but I don't think you need to understand all of it. And I feel like the parts that we need to understand are explained well enough to us. And yeah, I don't think anyone needs to be scared of this book. And you don't need to be like super intellectual to read it. You probably will like it more if you have an interest in certain things, but yeah, you don't need like a huge brain to read it, I don't think. Oh, also, I forgot to talk about the cat. There is a cat character in here. I really like the cat. The cat shows up at all of these different like parts that I just really liked, and it's a cat with a lot of attitude, so it gets bonus points for that actually. And now that I've read this book, this cover also makes more sense, and yeah. Ugh, the cat is really cute though. I was rooting for the cat. Even if I wasn't rooting for the characters, I was really rooting for the cat. I think that was kind of it for today though. Now, if you've read this book, I would love to hear what you thought. If you hated it, that's okay. If you felt middling about it, that's okay too. If you loved it, it's all fine. It is just a book at the end of the day. But yeah, I really liked it. I do think I'm gonna end up giving this 5 stars actually. And yeah, those are all my thoughts for now, and I hope you enjoyed this. I feel like this is going to be a little bit messy, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. And as always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!